Richard Hanna with the People's News on heard on Sundays from 12 noon and repeated again on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. on KPFT HD2.
And Chris Sampson here from Kiev, editor of NetSec Media and longtime KPFT alumni. Glad to be with you.
And this is Egberto Willies from Politics Done Right on KPFT every morning at 6 a.m. till 7 a.m. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to discuss this present issue, Richard.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey, Chris, what's your thoughts, first of all, on the press conference, and what does it mean for Ukraine?
Well, I think it's a national embarrassment to watch the treatment of any top official from another country come and sit with our executive branch and be so rudely treated in a subservient and demeaning way. I think it doesn't bode well for America's relationship with many countries that, like with Starmer and Macron coming in to visit, he didn't act that way with them, right? We sort of know the patterns of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, but I think to the larger picture, Mr. Zelenskyy made a point that the current administration is not addressing, which is there is a warfare against the United States and the allies. It is a form of hybrid warfare in Europe, clearly shown through attacks on ammunition facilities, the attempted assassination of the Rheinmetall CEO. And you have to think of it from the Russian point of view of what else would they do? These are ways they would obviously operate. So when we turn a blind eye to it, we're not effectively going to be safe. Number two, to the base that voted for him, the consequences of these childish behaviors certainly don't spell good for America first, because the rest of the countries will retaliate in withdrawing from trade deals that actually benefit average Americans. And they will feel the pinch. They will not get satisfaction at the electorate level. And frankly, I think that the security of the United States is greatly at risk.
What do you mean greatly at risk?
Well, for instance, as you may know, or let me just clarify, after I left KPFT, I started working more towards the understanding the terrorism world as a cynic of the Bush and Cheney administration, clearly. And then the more I began to understand, I realized there were tangible realities on the ground about terrorism that average people, regardless of politics, need to address. And effective policy is undermined by clownish showman antics of different kinds, whether it's the Frank Gaffneys on the right trying to sell Islamophobia as effective counterterrorism, to the Medea Benjamins that act like there is no terrorism, everything's the CIA bad. These don't protect human lives. So I began to be a researcher by accident to doing this work. And currently the Republicans have now put everyone in office that will do everything but protect you, everything. And the people who, when they see passages in any policy about what they think of as DEI, they just think of basically white power being affected. That's what they're really afraid of. But they didn't see that, for instance, like the FBI uses the incoming experience from different communities with those experience levels affecting both the benefit of the civilians in those communities and the awareness of threats within those communities. And they just basically wipe them out. They, after all those years of building those bridges, just decided, we're going to get rid of a 4-star general and put in a 3-star general. And we're going to get rid of another 4-star general. We're going to put in a lieutenant colonel because DEI. This is not even the neocons. I mean, it's weird to be on the same page as the neocons of what's going on right now, how red alert this is. It's next level crazy. I blame the neocons personally for a lot of the policies that they thought were perfectly okay for unitary executive power, that now that it's Trump, they're balking against at least I would say mostly our community, KPFT-ish. We understood executive power to be dangerous all along.
What do you think about, they say about Zelenskyy and what the U.S. president was saying, and saying that, well, you can't survive without us. And that you'd better give us all these minerals. Didn't say what he's going to, anything in return. So it seemed like the U.S. government was kind of blackmailing. So
it's mafia corruption. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing: is the deal itself mafia corruption? Not necessarily. Ukraine understands more than just with the United States, understands building trade relationships and ongoing relationships that those countries later say, hey, wait, you're worth something. And I would say in 3 years of going to a lot of briefings that there has been a growth in the need for this because of the situations. Now, but what Trump just did was essentially what he did in 2019, quid pro quo. It's the way he wants to operate. And without giving any kind of guarantee, one, we're talking about he doesn't really know what he's getting, the president of the United States. And as far as the Zelenskyy side, Zelenskyy is going to work within the orbit of a lot of different officials, including the Rada members. There will be a lot of opinions here that he will have distilled into what's in the best interest. So I would say that unlike the way he gets characterized both by the president or his staff and some of the talking class, is that it's not like it's his personal whim decision that you're seeing in those modes. Most often, one of the things I've learned from studying a lot of Euromaidan activists of different kind of political persuasions is they really just don't want this place to ever be run by a strongman again. They've been there. They don't want to go back to that. He really reflects a lot of that. And actually, the flaws in some of the political decision-making here are the sort of opposite effect, which is the populist not wanting to upset the people, therefore we won't do the following. That is not very dictatorial, right? It's sort of death by 1,000 fiats, if you will, not to laugh at it. But that's very interesting part of watching the dynamic between Trump's strongman behavior emulating what he thinks the world should operate by, and the fact that Zelenskyy actually isn't that guy.
I know he was. I heard one of the reporters lambaste him, Zelenskyy, for not wearing a suit, not dressing accordingly in the Oval Office, not giving the Oval Office is just
again this time. They said this trope this time because they've said that before.
Right.
Yes,
right.
You know what? It's sad.
Again, it's sort of just, and this is what I'm saying, that there's this narrative they have to say. It's an easy cheap shot thing from the last time. So I actually got into it over a year ago as a person who's lived here. And for the viewers and listeners, I was in 2 mass grave areas in the first 6 months. In Bucha, I filmed in Bucha. I filmed in Izum. I have done 3 years of testimonial filming. I've talked to people. I live in a house, basically, of people who are displaced, who are my family from the South. I know a lot of things about what have happened. Okay. And in that, it's nearly impossible to hear the way the machinations of political voices that have no stake in it talk about what should happen in territory. There are people they're sacrificing just by verbalizing it, by the way, because there are people right now checking across those lines in what is hostile, torturous, raping, filtrating, conscripting terrorism on a daily level. I mean, we've had no problem throwing all of our might at the Islamic state. Look what they did in Sinjar province. Look how terrible it is. Okay, but we've normalized the Russian Federation. No, there's too much testimony to show exactly what's wrong.
I want to expand on that because what you're talking about there is interesting. Many people would look at the way Zelenskyy fronted Donald Trump as being disrespectful, but it is Zelenskyy that is in a war. It is Zelenskyy whose peoples are dying. It's Zelenskyy who has to go home. And it's either he comes home having appeased the president who knows nothing about what's really going on.
And let me add, it's Zelenskyy who is stood in front of my camera bearing his soldiers. Like when he was in front of my camera on March 10th, 2023, bearing a 26-year-old commander, a hero of Ukraine, so young, who was fighting for his country and didn't, had all these other options, but that's not what he did. He went to fight for his country, and Zelenskyy was there. I hear a lot of criticisms in country that I think of as beautiful in the sense that I like that there's some vibrant discussions. I would be afraid if it wasn't. And the cheerleading effect of the first year of get behind the leader we're off into normal politic of, he's not good enough. He's not fighting this way. I didn't vote for him, but that's great. Actually, that's the thing I really, really want to see. For Houston listeners, I was raised by the sort of Shape Center. There's a lot of leadership around my early life that put a lot of like Deloitte Parker and those folks, Obadika Kamal and the radio programmers around us were bringing people, of course. But a lot of the events shaped how I view empowerment. And so here I see it. I see people going, look, no one's coming to help us. We got to help ourselves. No one's coming to save us. We got to save ourselves. But we appreciate when it comes in. Oh, wait, there's conditions. Of course, there's conditions. Like these are things that relate to people I've grown up with politically. So here, what's so frustrating is when I see our national leadership do the thing I expect them to do. I'm not surprised. I've seen it in other flavors, but they do it to a national, international and national situation that is borderline level Holocaust.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
We have people currently in the occupied territory who their children have been put into conscription in Kherson in camps. This is, we can talk about this in subsequent programming, but they executed anyone that would have been a threat. And we have to remember, like, as a Houstonian, we understand people who don't leave during hurricanes. Grandma didn't leave because someone will have to look after the cat in the garden, and hopefully everything will work out until it was too late. And by the way, Auntie stayed with her too, And so there's a lot of situations where there are things that are too real time to talk about that are not territory, they're people. And we didn't seem to have a problem with that when it was Sinjar province and when it's the Yazidis. Mm-hmm. And we, by the way, we actually do have a problem with it on the ground, but I'm saying the optic on the big level, we don't have people who talk about it with some angst. It was like on-off switch. It's ISIS, it's us, right? But now it's like, oh, it's the Russian Federation, Well, this is a terrible thing they're doing, but we have tickets to the Bolshoi, so, it's insanity. This is a modern war. So I live in Kiev every night, and it's not happening right now, but if you were to go live with me long enough, we have drone attacks of 170, 180 drones. Okay, I literally had, when I was broadcasting just 4 nights ago, I had one fly 90 degrees over my apartment, and my apartment building been 4 floors taller, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It's all the time. It's every night. It's subsequently hit every so often, I don't know, 8, 12 days, depending on salvos of missiles on top. And it's done at times when delegations are here. I mean, the South African delegation could be here. The Japanese delegation could be here. Air raid goes off. They know that there's a war. But the world's gotten complacent to it. Final note real quick. There's so many places that the West gets complacent to. We could talk about African state capture under Russians for hours and how it got that way and why America shouldn't have turned. We could do this for hours about how we got into some of these locked up positions.
No,
I learned a lot of it on KPFT, by the way.
Go ahead, Richard.
Well, Egberto, I was going to ask a question. You saw the press conference. The U.S. president said that about the minerals that we have U.S. people on the ground to extract the minerals in Ukraine. How would that be possible?
No, they don't.
That's not true.
The funny thing about it is, and I don't know, Donald Trump made a fool of himself to the rest of the world at that news conference because the lies that he told the rest of the world are aware of, and that means they actually know that even on a big stage, this guy cannot be trusted because he lies. But a real question that I have for Chris is how is the behavior of Zelenskyy being taken in Kiev and with that in Ukraine in general? Are they proud of their president and how he reacted with Donald Trump?
Interesting. Let me say it this way. If you had taken a measure of Ukrainian sentiment across the nation or in the capital about Zelenskyy the day before Trump called him a dictator, that would have been a very important indicator because it wasn't something people were talking about. It wasn't part of the conversation today. Other things about America, maybe. Then that happened. And it really went up quite a bit that how dare you talk about our guy. Now, I didn't vote for him, but he's my man. So, yeah, it went way up because that's what I said. He embodies, when he's at that stage level, he embodies Ukrainian people. And they know that. When he's at home in front of a Ukrainian press, well, why aren't you doing this? That's personal. They know that. They know that frequency. It's a different frequency, right? And the Western press doesn't get that. The Western press doesn't hear that those are two channels going on at the same time. So the other channel will still be true, which is, why is this deputy get treated one way? Why did you, that goes on domestically. But as far as the national sentiment for him, it went way up after he was attacked. And they also think that he handles himself well.
That is interesting. Go ahead, Richard.
No, I'm just curious, where do we go from here? Because I also heard that France and England have stated that they will send troops on the ground. Peacekeepers upon a ceasefire. Okay, it's not going to happen. So
we're not at a ceasefire level.
So what happens now?
Let me put it this way. Here's why. I mean, we all know Donald Trump's a stupid man and senile and a convicted criminal. But the thing is with Trump is that he's so strategically stupid that he doesn't, at least this time around, have some smart people around that at least strategically still want to succeed at some semblance of his promises to pay off. So if he really wants this ceasefire and the Nobel Peace Prize, what he just said to Zelenskyy, all the verbiage that just came out, is so close to not getting anywhere near close that people around him should start thinking like, we screwed ourselves by realizing that the 25th Amendment's not enough. The guy next to him's worse. Because Vance is the one who just started all that. Trump would have gone along with whatever Zelenskyy did without another dog in there. Actually, I'm going to lay a metaphor on you that is so true. I didn't say this to an earlier radio show. I have a beautiful dog once that got along with the cats. Another dog that every child and friend in the neighborhood loved in my neighborhood had no place to be. I let him in the backyard. Two dogs that would never be difficult in the world and test until the two dogs got around the cat at the same time. My primary dog attacked the cat. That had never happened before. Why? Because dogs are dogs and cats are cats. I say that because when I see that phenomenon, sometimes it triggers on my animal level to watch this in human behavior.
Exactly right.
And Trump left alone with Zelenskyy today with no Vance, we would not be having the last part of the conversation. I'm positive of this.
I was thinking that exactly. I am glad somebody else noticed that.
And I love that other dog that came in the yard, but it still created the effect of the two dogs that had, oh, wait, we're dogs again. Get the cat.
Exactly. Well, how do you want to close this, Richard?
Well, what do you say, people that know you from KPFT? What do you want to say to the listening audience at KPFT in Houston? One,
I miss KPFT. The building was the last thing I saw. I photographed Wayne Bradley and Hank Wojcik. It's the last thing I saw before I came to Ukraine. And I have a photo to this day that I keep in my phone and I have it around of KPFT. And I am who I am because of KPFT in many, many ways. Learned so many people. We had our little mini democracy back in 2000 where we built bylaws. And I learned so much from grassroots radio, news, creative effort. I still record music here, like when I was Music Beyond Borders executive producer. I still do news here with the same grunt as we learned from Jackson Allers and Chickpea, Renee Feltz, and our great teams over FSRN. And I am eternally grateful. But I also ask the audience to really think about all the things we stood for when we look at this war and ask, what did we really stand for? Because I haven't changed. I'm still an anti-imperialist who doesn't believe in cultural wipeouts of other people, just like I believed that when I was at KPFT doing it, And I think that there's been a problem with communication in the progressive left because of disinformation people. And it's really shameful to even have it go up to Chomsky and other people I revered as people going in the right direction about calling out mass media behavior. But I think that it got caught in an algorithm that grinds people up. And now we have this situation with Trump in America where there are communities directly in harm's way, already being harmed. And we have a responsibility with the airwaves and our media resources. And I appreciate being able to be part of that still. I'm on the ground here in Kiev for my third year and in Ukraine for 30 years. I've been all over the country. And I still think of myself as, actually, I still have on my press badge, which has, Ukrainian MOD, everything else. I still have actually my first KPFT press badge from 1999.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.